Hello and welcome to the Spirit Spa, an online sanctuary dedicated to supporting you if you're in the early stages of recovering from a nervous breakdown, helping you to identify why the breakdown has happened to you and work out your next natural steps towards rebuilding a flourishing life for yourself. I'm Karen Packwood, the UK's leading expert on recovery in the early stages of rebuilding your life following a breakdown. And in today's video, I'm going to be exploring the question of if you try to communicate cleanly with your family and friends about how you're feeling and asking for what you need, but they're not able to give it to you, what do you do? Now this question comes in response to a video that I created called Communicating Clearly with Friends and Family, and the link to that video is going to be in the box below. I'm going to just do a very quick recap of what was mentioned in that video, but obviously watch it for greater detail by following the link. So in that video, I talked about a technique called clean talk. So this was so that when you're in a situation with family and friends, you can find ways and use the technique to help yourself express yourself to your family and friends, letting them know how you're feeling and what it is that you need. And it was a technique where you say, I feel because I need. So you say how you're feeling, why you're feeling it, and what you need to help you feel better. Now, one of the viewers of that video then posted a comment and said, what if my family aren't able to engage in clean talk? They're quite frightened of it. So what do we do in that situation? And then secondly, what if I ask for something such as a hug and they're not able to give that to me authentically? What do I do then? And these are really valid questions, because the reality is that many people find clean talk incredibly threatening. Now the reason for this is because we're not used to doing it in our culture, in Western culture. It's very, very unusual for anybody to be trained from a very young age to be, feel okay about expressing their feelings. I feel because we're not comfortable with it as a culture, particularly if they're difficult feelings. It's something that we feel quite awkward about and quite embarrassed about. And so obviously once we reach adulthood, we become completely unskilled at expressing our own feelings, but also being able to hear and receive calmly the feelings of others, particularly if they're difficult feelings, and particularly if it's somebody that we are very close to that's trying to express those difficult feelings as well. So it can be very, very awkward situation. And so clean talk is a bit of a skill. It's a bit of a technique. It's something that takes practice. And it's absolutely something that takes courage. And some of you will find that you will have family, friends and members, of your social circle and so on, who will be willing to engage in it, who will be, willing to try it with you, to have a go at it with you. But you will also come up against resistance, quite severe resistance at times. And it might be that you absolutely are clear that there are some people you are never ever going to be able to communicate clearly and openly with about your feelings and have those respected. I made a list of the ways that people show how they're really, really uncomfortable with the whole being very open about expressing feelings and about helping people authentically deal with these very difficult feelings. So often the response is often quite negative. You might get a lot of criticism, really people trying to put it down. You might get somebody who's quite angry with you, who really tries to shut you up by being quite angry with you. You might find yourself in the face of ridicule, people taking the mickey out of you for wanting to do this, taking the mickey out of your emotions. Ridicule is not at all unusual. Quite often sarcasm will go along with that as well. And then of course, the ultimate is just rejection, just kind of like shutting you down, pushing you away, walking away from you, just, refusing to engage with it whatsoever. So what do you do when you are in this vulnerable state of recovering from a breakdown? You're in a place now where you're ready to be completely clear, authentic, living at your highest level of authenticity, because you know that that's what your breakdown has brought you to. You know that living inauthentically, not being open and honest about who you truly are and what you truly need, wasn't getting you very far, got you into this very painful place of the breakdown. So you want to be living at your highest conscious level, most authentically and joyfully and honestly as you possibly can, but you've got people around you who aren't able to operate at that level. So what do you do? So I've got three kind of pieces of advice for you to think about. So the first of all, let's take the example of the hug. You might say, I need a hug, and you ask for a hug, and the person either doesn't want to give it to you, can't give it to you, brushes you away, or they give it to you but you get that real sense that it's not kind of like a genuine hug, or that it's actually still not giving you what you need. So what do you do with that? Well, my advice is this. Ask yourself what it is that you really want from the hug. I mean, I'm using the hug for an example, but obviously you will have your own thing that you're thinking about. So it's a hug. What is it that you really want? Do you need to feel safe? Do you want to feel as if somebody is supporting you? Is it affection that you need? Is it a sadness that needs soothing? What really is it that you are asking for in that particular thing, in this case, the hug? And if you're feeling that the person that you've asked to give you the hug, for example, isn't able to do that, ask yourself, what can you do yourself? Break it down. What I really wanted was some affection. What I really wanted was to feel safe. I'm not getting it from this person or other people. How can I give it to myself? And really begin to think about it as you giving it to yourself. And I found that there was quite a long period in my recovery from my breakdown that actually it was really about me learning how to give myself what I needed. Partly because at the time it was quite hard for me to explain to other people, and also it was very difficult to ask. Just the act of asking is a vulnerable thing, isn't it? And if we are in living situations where there isn't somebody that can support us in the way that we need to be supported, we have to find ways of doing it for ourselves. That's a really kind of essential part of the recovery. So really take some time to work out how can you give yourself what it is that you really need if other people aren't able to do it for you. And even if they are able to give you the hug, for example, still find ways of giving yourself a hug too, because that's a really important part of your like self-resilience within the recovery process. So that's one thing. The second thing is this is quite a tough one. This is around making choices. So the reality is that as you go through your recovery period, you are changing, you are evolving, you are growing. You are not going to be the same person post-recovery that you were pre-breakdown. You are evolving. As we've said, we're moving into a much more authentic, much more truthful, much more conscious way of living for your highest well-being. This means that there are going to be some people in your world who are no longer going to feel as if you fit with them. Now this doesn't, so I'm going to talk about this stage and then just stick around for the next thing that I'm going to say, because I'm going to talk about people that you don't necessarily feel as if you fit with still for my third point as well. So just stick with what I'm about to say here. So what happens if you are with people who you feel no longer fit your world, or you no longer fit into their world? You've evolved beyond it. You have to make some choices. There are going to be some people that you are going to feel it is very natural for you to walk away from, distance yourself from, end your connection with. And of course, that doesn't have to be rude or brutal or unkind or anything. You can do this in a very loving way for your highest well-being, but ultimately it'll be for their highest well-being too, because if there's no longer a fit, then there'll be conflict. So actually it's in everybody's interest for the sort of a natural kind of separation to take place with people who genuinely don't fit for you anymore. It takes immense courage to do this, and it takes time. I've had to go through this several times during my recovery process in the early stages. It happened with friends, it happened with colleagues, it happened in work situations, it happened with family members. There was some massive shifts. I have to be honest that at times it was incredibly painful. It was very difficult at times. There was a lot of resistance to it. It wasn't something I wanted necessarily, but it became clear that it was what was needed. And I'll probably do another video on that to talk about that in more detail. But it's a natural part of the evolutionary process of healing. So be prepared for the fact that it might be that there are some people, experiences, places, locations and so on that need to dissolve, if you like. Take your time with it, sit with it, don't rush it, don't kind of bluntly start dismissing things and people from your life. Sit with it until you kind of really have that genuine sense of what is right and what is wrong for you. But this is now onto my third point. There are some people in your life that are not going to give you what you want and need when they're not going to be able to do the clean talk, the clear communication and so on. But there are also people that you don't necessarily want to lose from your life. They're probably people that you love very, very deeply. So you don't actually want to kind of, dismiss them from your life. But you also know that they're not able to kind of communicate with you in the way that you want to communicate. And that brings me to acceptance. There are some people that you are just going to have to accept are not going to be able to have the clean talk conversations. They're not going to want to know about your difficult feelings. They won't be comfortable with it. They won't know how to respond. They might do all of the shutting down, squashing you, ridiculing you and so on. You know that that's what their response is going to be because they can't deal with it within themselves. But you don't want to lose them from your life. So what you do there is you make a decision. I'm not going to lose this person from my life. I'm going to have them in my life, but I'm going to accept that they can't have these conversations. Therefore, I'm going to protect myself by not even trying to have the conversation, not trying to force somebody into having a conversation that they're not capable of having or willing to have. So then that really becomes self-protective. Identify who those people are, and then work out how you're going to work with them, communicate with them, so that you're not going to trigger conflict, you're not going to be constantly disappointed because they're not giving you what you need, they're not listening to you in the way that you need to be listened to. So you kind of learn what to say with those people and what not to say with those people. And I definitely have people in my life that that applies to, that I've learned the hard way. How not to say things to them and not to try and have clean talk conversations with them, and just to kind of keep things quite superficial with them in order to maintain contact with them. So that's definitely a self-preservation thing, and also protecting them, because if they're uncomfortable about talking about difficult feelings, they have every right to not be forced into feeling discomfort and so on. So this is about mutual respect. But of course, what you need to do is you need to find the people that you can talk with, and it might be, to start with, it's just yourself, where you're just authentic with yourself. I feel because I need. Be really authentic with yourself. But what happens is, what you find is that as you begin to sift through who you want to stay in contact with, to have in your I know somebody that refers to this as her love bubble. It's a really amazing woman called Jodie Chapman, and she calls it her love bubble. And she has a little bubble around herself, an imaginary bubble, and she decides who gets to be in her love bubble, the people that are really, she's really able to communicate well with, who really she can listen to, they can listen to her, you know, there's mutual respect there and mutual love there. They get to be in this like inner sanctum of the love bubble, and then there's everybody else is outside of that, and you can decide on the degree of how close they are to you outside of the bubble. And you can have people, you know, further and further away, until eventually you have people that you just don't have in your sphere anymore whatsoever. So it's all very much about self-preservation. It's about understanding that clean talk doesn't always work for everybody. It will work with some people, and it's about finding out who those people are, knowing that you can trust them, and that you can have nice, clear, safe, sacred boundaries around yourself to have these very fragile, vulnerable, evolutionary conversations. So I hope that makes sense. If you have any further questions about that, please obviously email me at karen@karenpackwood.com, or leave the question in the comments box below. I will do a video in a little bit more detail about that process of kind of sifting through who's right for you and who's wrong for you, and how you go around the distancing, the separation, the ending of situations that are no longer right for you and well for you. But in the meantime, I'm wishing you a very peaceful day. You'll notice that I'm not in my usual forest environment. That's actually because I've been doing a video relating to journaling just before this, and I thought, well, while I've got the video all set up, I'll do this video as well, because I really wanted to get it out to you. So I'm sending you lots of love, wishing you a very peaceful and loving day. Take care. Bye-bye.